Welcome to the Spirit and Soul Healing Podcast. I'm Amy Sikarskie, Master Energy Therapist, channeler, mentor, and friend. I'm so happy to connect. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Sikarskie. Welcome to the Spirit and Soul Healing Podcast. I'm here with my friend, Dr. Shannon Poulos, and we're so excited to have you guys join us today for a wonderful conversation. We've already been visiting, kind of like we do, full of laughters over here. I want to welcome you, Shannon. How are you today?
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm very good. I'm excited to be here, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for weeks. So I'm happy to see where it flows.
Yeah, I am too. It feels like a day full of sunshine. It's spring now, and I can feel that energy's lifting. so,
Yeah, and the spring equinox hitting, and just yeah, I feel like good momentum coming in with it. So that feels nice.
yeah, you look so glowy and full of light. I'm like, oh, it's the whole vibe.
Yeah, our green, our heart chakra color.
Yes, oh, I love
Yeah.
it. Oh, so we've known each other for a little bit of time, but I would love for you to share with our listeners just a bit about yourself and anything that you feel called, anything that wants to come through.
Okay. Well, I am a mom of four, which is always one of the biggest things to say.
Mhm.
Let's see. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, and I had worked as a therapist for many, many years until I had my last kiddo 10 years ago. And then I kind of decided to take a break. I was already kind of needing a break
Mm.
from it already. And so he came in just at the right time, just I think kind of to help me, I know, kind of to help me
Yeah.
change course um and being pregnant with him actually I was like infused with energy of like I could feel him talking to me. I could feel him just like calming me down, telling me everything was
Oh,
going to be okay because I was 42. So I was like eh, my husband and I went on vacation alone. So that's how that
wow.
all of you out there listen to me. But anyway, so being pregnant with him was kind of like the beginning of a big turning point in my life. I was feeling like kind of stagnant in my work, in my life. I was feeling kind of not very successful, I guess. I
Mm,
see now that I was feeling not successful in terms of like the way I'd approached life up until that point, which just was very masculine energy. It was very like hustle, hustle
mhm.
energy. And I was good at it. I could, it worked. And then until it didn't. And so then when I was pregnant with him, I kind of slowed down and I ended up closing my practice when he was one. So that was about 9, 10 years
Okay.
ago. And then when COVID hit, I just had like had a lot coming through telling me like, "Oh, I think we're supposed to calm down. I think we're supposed to quiet. I think we're supposed to go inward. I think we're supposed to like work on ourselves." So I did some work on myself and found a big awakening starting to happen. And that took me on a trajectory of energy healing and a lot of healing of things in my past that I thought I had already kind of worked through, but it was like another layer of work needed to be done that I couldn't do through traditional therapy.
Right.
And I ended up just to manage all the energy coming through my body at the time, I was walking in nature just for hours and talking to the universe like, what am I meant to do here? I know it's something. What is it? And developing like a real solid relationship with my team and spirit, and followed those breadcrumbs and it led me. I remember hearing through the body, and I ended up going to Reiki for the first time, and that then led me to, sound healing and other kind of alternative measures, and it worked for me. It was efficient, and I loved it, and that's how I met you because I went to you for a reading, I think, like, in 2022, maybe? I went to you for a reading, and it was profound, and added another layer of what I knew I needed to work on. And then uh, the Reiki person I had gone to, she asked me to train with her. I did level 1 with her and then decided that I needed someone who could, answer my questions about
Mm,
Reiki, and I
yeah.
came to you. Yeah, I was like, "I'm gonna need to know how this is working more specifically," and I came to you to do the rest of my Reiki training, and I just found so much of a heart opening and purpose in learning the Reiki and all the other things that I ended up doing, much of which was through you. So, I
Aw.
credit you with a lot of it, and now I have a business, that where I do, like, a blend of what I did before. So I do, um, like I include what I know about counseling, but I don't diagnose people anymore, and I just work with people energetically and intuitively, and it's just incredibly enjoyable. It's way less straining, I feel fulfilled, I feel like it's efficient and effective, and so, yeah, so that's where I am now. I'm feeling really on the other side of a lot of that stuff.
Oh, wow. I love to hear your story. I feel like some of it I didn't know. It's like, "Oh my gosh." Yes, and so for our listeners that would say, "Wow, this is fascinating." The transition from being more in that Western medicine clinical space into the spiritual practice, and it was because you were looking for ways to support yourself at a deeper layer and, that going within experience. What were some of the aha moments or the things that really stick out to you as far as, well, I need maybe a particular type of experience, whether it's a modality or, like you said, the walking in nature and having that be honored? I feel sometimes people might not think, oh, these are self care healing practices that just get overlooked or not prescribed.
Yeah, it was I have to say at the time, I didn't know what was happening to me. Like, I
Mm,
didn't really understand my body. I kept telling people, like, that my body felt like it was on fire. I just recognize now how much energy was flowing through me, and I was trying so hard to ground, and nature truly healed me. It truly,
wow.
truly healed me. I had really magical experiences in nature, literally with, like, dragonflies feeling like they're trying to communicate with me, and I was like, "I know you're trying to communicate with me. I don't know what you're saying," and, just really trying to, connect, and it was visceral, like, it was undeniable, hard to explain.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was hard to explain to people, but, I tried so hard. It's almost like there aren't words, for people who've gone through this, they know what I'm talking about,
Right.
but it was like it's an interesting experience when you're going through something, but you don't know what it is, you don't know how to describe it, but nature just soothed it was the only thing that could soothe me, and because I'm a therapist and I had been in therapy before, so both ends I had experienced,
Right.
I was like, you know, I need an approach I can't outsmart.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes,
Yeah,
and that
I needed to, like, not be able to, because I know the dance. I knew I had already worked on I had, some real healing that needed to be done between myself and my relationship with my mom, and I had already done layers of that, and I was almost like and now I have clients who say the same thing, like, "I thought I was done with this. I thought like, tackled this already." But I just intuitively knew that there was an aspect that was still yet to be healed
Mhm.
in that relationship, and so here's the reason why I bring this up, this is so ironic. I was working with my mom, she's also a clinician. So then
Okay.
had stopped working, we had a clinic together, and she went down the road of Jungian psychology, and she was into a lot of Reiki and stuff like that, but when she went down that path, it coincided with my parents' divorce when I was, like, 11, 12. So I associated a lot of the, like, spiritual path
Okay.
and abandonment. So I kind of rejected an aspect of it because, and I did accurately read some of the people that she was hanging out with as not having the best of intentions. Like, so I
Okay.
learned like I kind of learned a good amount of discernment, I think, in like how you can trust people in any community.
Right.
But anyways, so that needed to be another layer needed to be healed, and what's so funny about this is, and ironic, is that when I was on my walks, I realized through the body, I kept hearing through the body, and then
Mm.
Reiki popped in, and I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna have to do this. Like, I don't wanna do this, but I'm gonna have to do this." And I booked a session, and I ended up talking about my mom, and lo and behold, it set me on a trajectory of recognizing I was trying to, like, intellectually forgive and intellectually heal something.
Right.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense, but I was trying to, like, reason myself through it, understand it on a, like, higher spiritual perspective, but not really do the, like, energy work of healing
Right. Yeah.
because it's not pretty all the time. I mean, it's a lot of emotional release that you have to be willing to do, and I found that when I did it, when I really allowed myself to feel how I felt,
Mhm.
it moved through so quickly. I would have, like, sang it up from the rooftops if I could. I was telling everybody who would listen. I'm like, "You have to do this. You have to do this." And so the
Yeah.
Reiki kinda helped, like, push up and out and get moving some of the stagnation, the stagnant, like, wound energy inside my body, and then I knew how to process it, so I did that. Um, and then very quickly, and so I guess what I wanna say about this is there is something called the Chiron return, which I learned about because I was, like, grasping for any
Mm.
explanation, and the Chiron return is
Right.
when you're around 50-ish, and it's an astrology aspect, it's a planetoid or asteroid, I guess, and it's when Chiron returns to the place it was in your chart when you were born, and it really, like, pulls up a lot of the, like, primal wounding, either from past li
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know, when I found this out,
Wow.
I know. When I found this out, I was like, "Wait a minute, why aren't people talking about this?" We just call it like a midlife crisis. I was like, "Well, that's not really sufficient for what this is," you know?
Right.
Um, and because it holds the key, I mean, it's actually really beautiful if you allow it in. It, like, pulls up primal wounds from past lives or this life for you to really look at, for you to really acknowledge and heal and release, and then it holds the key to many of your gifts, like, many of your gifts, like, what is it that will get you to see the aspects of your authentic self you really can't see when you stay in that wounded place, and that's definitely a description of what I felt like I went through, and
Wow.
I really was able to heal with my mom and realize, "Oh, I was rejecting aspects of her because of the wounding that
Mm.
actually closed my heart to aspects of myself that are similar to her, that I really needed to see and incorporate to even now do what I'm doing. So I see now all of the, like, nuggets of how it was necessary to, move through it. I don't know if that works like that for everybody, but I think a lot of people will see it working like that, that once you go through whatever it is you're avoiding,
Yeah.
it really will hold the key, and I think energy healing is so combined with therapy if you want, but it's such a potent way to really get and unearth what you need to work on.
Right. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've done myself on my healing path, a combination of both. And I think it's both, they're really valuable. So I need to understand as well. But I love how you were sharing that. Especially if in your situation, you already knew the dance. And you're like, "I need something that I can't outsmart." And
Mhm.
that's a really like, I've never heard of it from that perspective before, so it makes me smile. And I'll share from my experience, I didn't know what I was getting into when I would do the healing and the reading stuff. So then I was just open to the experience, and I think in both, it's like, "Okay, just surrender, be observant and curious and let the magic take place." And so, for example, I don't know that it's specific to you and your healing process, but as you were speaking, I was thinking about, oh, this makes so much sense. And let's say, even if you had a reading, I mean, Oh, maybe that's too. Well, let's just go with that. Let's say you get some kind of information and it's a past life experience and you can connect all the dots, but the energy is still there.
Right.
So, yeah, that's in the spiritual setting, more in like a non-spiritual, more in a traditional, we'll say that. Traditional Western setting that might say, "Oh, well, your family has this pattern of blah blah blah, whatever it might be, A B C D." And so then you're like, "Okay, I have the information, but how do I move through it?" And, I guess I know, but behind the scenes in the energetic space, we can see as clairvoyant therapists, maybe there's cords, maybe there's energy bound around, there's links, the chakras clogged, the auras are enmeshed, like there's that overlapping. And so then we can say, okay, this is happening and this is how it's affecting you and your energy body. Let's go in and realign and adjust and release and get you feeling back to your sovereign self. So I think that it kind of gives out, it can, this work of the readings, of course, but the healing space that's a spiritually based healing space can allow our soul to come through, our team to come through, lead the way, and finally get to like the exact cause of the ongoing disruption. So releasing it, healing it, clearing it. And is that what you were talking about in those
Yeah.
experiences?
Yes, and even along the same lines of what you're talking about, it's like even once I would get a reading that would explain, because I was starting to have what I had described, I told you this more than once, more than once, because it took a while for me to really like be able to move this. But I had like primal fear of visibility, like I mean, too
Yeah.
unreasonable. If unreasonable to the circumstance, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and that primal fear, it's like even if you get a reading and someone can explain that, well, you know, and many of us for right now, we're dealing with a lot from past lives, right? It's
Right.
time, it's coming up now for us to really purge and release.
Yeah.
So, but I was dealing with that and intellectually understanding it was never the problem. It's like, okay, I get that. I get the intellectual what's happening, or why it might be happening. But the actual learning your energy system and having someone support you, hold you, release it in a gentle way, and then kind of be able to answer questions if in your work day, or I mean in your work week or your everyday life, you're feeling that surge. It's like you need support to learn how to actually handle that in your energy system. That takes time to learn that.
Right.
You can't just reason it away. I mean, it's helpful to know where it's coming from, but you also have to learn how to effectively ground your system, how to be able to navigate like the human beingness of the experience.
Right.
And that I feel energy healers and various forms of healing, I think it can just really help it's like gives the system a leg up. If you
Mhm.
just come from one modality, I think it just takes longer than if you could open and try to see if there are other things that you can, you know, that your body can start to resonate with and trust that whatever does come up then you can handle, which is the thing I say to clients a lot. If it's coming up now, it's because you can handle it and it's time. You know,
Right.
that's why it's here. And so,
Yes.
yeah, and so, and you definitely helped me with that understanding the fear of visibility and also the, kind of energetics of how to handle myself through it. And now it's nice to be able to help other people with that same type of thing or whatever it is they're dealing with.
Right. Yeah. I'm just feeling you're so qualified to help other people. Like you have so many experiences assisting others, but then truly going through our own healing process. That's where the wisdom really is felt and experienced. And a minute ago, when you were speaking, I was just seeing, it is a relationship between the spirit self and the body for sure.
Mm.
And so when you've had your experiences and you can understand it, even clinically from a spiritual space, but then you go through that process and it can feel like that dark night of the soul or working with the shadow self. It can feel like your whole world is crumbling or ripping apart. It's just like all unwinding. And
Yeah.
then we're left in this space. And unless we've had that experience before, it's really hard to relate. And so you have gone through some of your own deepest healings. And I know for myself, like I would feel so comfortable to come to you for a session because I would feel seen, I would feel heard, I would feel safe.
Mm.
And also I feel like you have such a strong bright light around you, and I know you have an amazing spiritual team. So here you've got all of this experience, wisdom, knowledge, and I'm hearing in my from the team years of success in the physical plane, in everything that you've accomplished and shared with the world, and you're going deeper with it, and it's so enriching when you've brought in your soul light and the spiritual essence. And I can feel you have a strong team around. So I don't know if there's anything you want to share with our listeners about your process and working with spirit, but I can feel it and it feels very transformative and deeply, deeply healing.
Oh, first of all, thank you for all of those kind words, Amy. Um, yeah, it's everything is relational, isn't it? Like everything is
Yes.
relational. And so my relationship with my team and spirit is when I'm still working, I'm still like cultivating and leaning into. And that is a lot of what I went through is just, it was always happening. It's always happening. They're always there. They're always, around helping you. But I didn't know it necessarily. I did as a kid, but I didn't
Mhm.
like it just lost connection with the knowingness of it all. So then when I was in therapy with people, you know, um, I'm certain I was being like told things to say to people because they would come in and say, "Well, you told remember when you told me blah blah blah," and I'm thinking,
Oh.
that's not in the books, it wasn't
Yeah.
like it wasn't clinical, it was just like, something that came through to tell them, but I didn't realize it, and so now what's fun is knowing my team and utilizing that, like, speaking with them and asking for their assistance with not only myself every single day,
Mhm.
um, which I do routinely now, and it's just like it's one of the most important relationships of my life, this relationship with my team and spirit. But
Yeah.
also in the work with clients, it's like I love trusting that when before I meet a client and I pull my team in and their team in and say, could we please work together for the highest good of this client? Help me be a conduit for messages that would be beneficial to them at this time for their healing, and to feel it happen, to feel the teamwork of
Yes.
that feels it feels, yeah, next level, and like I said, it was happening before, but outside of my awareness, and now I'm so much more aware of it, and it's so enjoyable, and I like to just intuitively move with people. I mean, I do got an intuitive guidance and but when I meet someone, it's crystal clear to me what it is that would be helpful to them at the time. So whether I use crystals or whether I pull an oracle card or whether I use most of the time to be just in loving space with them, it's
Mhm.
usually just like something I'm comfortable just in the allowing of it. I can like feel their team working with mine and it feels wonderful, like,
Right.
and to get that, and so funny because I used to think that, like, talking about the clairs, I used to think it was more, like, obvious, like, I was like, "Well, I don't see visions, like, I don't," you know, and we would talk about this a lot. You were very helpful in helping me with this because I was like, I don't know how like, didn't know how I worked," and, recognizing, like, how subtle it is, that
Yes.
it's so subtle, that I was like, "Oh, that voice is always there. Oh, that's what that is," and recognizing um, how to lean into it, how to trust it, how to work with it more, like the Claire sentience was always on board. But I just thought everybody had that, and everybody does. But you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Yes.
"Everybody can feel this entire room, right?" Like, it's right? Like,
But they know. But we don't know any different. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like,
right. I mean,
"Oh, wow."
oh my gosh, yeah, when I was a little kid, I was like, yeah, like, I was so distracted by the feelings in the room the teacher was having or the kid behind me, or yeah, it was just
Yes.
wild. But, but as far as the relationship with, like, team and spirit my team and spirit, I'm yeah, it's one that I feel so grateful for, and I've really worked to that's another aspect of this work that I think has been really nourishing for me is the level of, like, full circleness of it all, that there's so much, like, "Thank you for helping me," and then the more you acknowledge the assistance, the more you feel
Yes.
the assistance, and
Yeah.
I love working with a client and, like, introducing that if they don't know all the I mean, if they come to me, they know I'm probably gonna talk about stuff like that, but if they don't have that muscle developed, like, I love watching them develop it, and, so, yeah, I think that, for a lot of people right now, I think that relationship is just gonna become more and more something people are gonna be able to tap into if they
Mhm.
allow for the quiet, you know to allow themselves to sort of like, give it a try, lean into it and see if you can, pick up
Mm.
on the messages you're for sure getting if you're willing to listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a whole experience of, oh, how do I wanna say this? Trusting the process, but also feeling like in control in a way that we have discernment. So by that, it's, yeah, I'm going to go to a session and I know I can stand up and leave at any time, right? So it's like calming any fears, like just having something as a backup plan or what have you. And then in the experience, just slowly opening to have this experience that might be new, it might be mystical. And also to that, don't set it up for something like, really grand and earth-shattering. So, all of the sessions are so unique for each of us, and when you were talking about the clair gifts, it's like, I am clairvoyant, but doesn't mean I'm always looking at stuff,
Right.
and sometimes I even get surprised when I'm not in a session, it's just in my day-to-day, and I'll see flashes of light, like, I'll have a thought, and I'm thinking about something in life, maybe, what I need to do that week or month. And then I'll see this burst of light in the room, and it's usually Michael or Metatron, but it's like this bright indigo or purple. And that doesn't happen often. But then when it does, it kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. I kind of forget as well because I have my spiritual practice where I'm helping others. And then I have my practice in my life. So it does cross and it does blend together. But having said that, I don't always say I'm 100% seeing like crystal clear in 3D or however you want to say it, like holograms and energy 24/7.
Yeah.
So when it comes in, it's being excited for the experience and open to it and just discovering it. And then it will get stronger and stronger, as you mentioned. The more we are
Mhm.
grateful, then it begins to build.
Yeah, and I love what you just said because I think I really care about this. I really care about, being discerning,
Yeah.
being and that can be confusing if you're not attached to where your inner knowing is. Like, if you aren't certain how you know things to be
Yes.
true. And then it's very hard to be discerning because you can just kind of take what somebody tells you and just you go off and run with it when really that might not have been exactly right. So I always say to clients like you this is this I offer to you, but it's yours to do with
Mm,
what you decide, and sometimes something won't resonate, for a year later until a year later or something. So,
right.
and then other things just don't resonate, and I really care that people, when they come to see me, that my highest desire is that they feel freer, that they attach that they recognize how powerful they are, that
Yeah.
I'm helping and aiding, but you're creating any change that's occurring, you are doing it. It's
Mhm.
not like a hierarchical top-down kind of experience, which I think can happen in therapy or can happen anytime you go to, an allopathic doctor or even an energy healer, you can feel like they know more than me, so I have to take everything they say. And no, you don't. You don't have
Right.
to. And you shouldn't. You should really, take in and let it percolate, let it marinate inside of you and see kind of what you're meant to do with it. But
Right.
only you know that, I mean, there are people that are really gifted and they can unlock things in you that are potent and powerful and meaningful. And yet it's still going to be yours to do with what you do with it. You still have to carry, the baton across the finish line. And so that, but when you're in that like liminal space, like what I was talking about when I was doing all the walking, and I was just like, what is happening to me? Um,
Right.
which I think a lot of people are in right now. And you and I were talking about that space of like, some things are falling away, whether they're in your control or not, whether you choose to leave something or whether it's just happening to you out of your
Hmm.
control. And you
Yeah.
don't know, you're in that void space. You're in the unknown of what I don't, things are falling away, but I don't yet know what's next. It's so unnerving.
Oh my gosh, I went through that recently. It's just, oh, yes, unnerving. I love that.
It is. I mean, it's hard to stay tethered. It's so ripe for like anxiety when you don't know. We aren't human beings want to know. We don't love not
Hmm.
knowing. And so it's hard to like keep your center in those times. And yet it's so fertile that time when you don't know, because if you tune in with yourself, you can really create something beautiful. You can really ask yourself the deep questions that we don't ask ourselves regularly. Like, what do I really like? What do I really want? What doesn't serve me anymore? You can really, in the shedding, which is uncomfortable, you can really decide what then you want to bring back in. Um,
Yeah.
or if you want to completely pivot and do something completely different, but your authentic self can really shine if you allow the space of that void. And, the Sacred Healers Circle that was a part of my life that you led was there for me during some of that liminal space time where I just was like, I was building a business, but I was like, I don't know all the ways in which it's going to look, or how do I describe what I'm doing, and, all the things. And when you can have somebody just stay steady for you and see what you can do and provide just that like a real like centered space, I think that is what a lot of people, if really need to do, is and find when they're in that liminal space, because I
Hmm.
think that can help you through when you feel like you just don't know when you feel like you're losing it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thanks for sharing that because I go back to my experiences in that liminal space and big transitions and shifts in my healer that was really so important and supportive for me. And it's, yes, we can talk about things, but a lot of times it's the energy that's held. And as somebody, like you mentioned, we're real sensitive to energy, we can feel that. And also just knowing there's this loving light and support around, not only from our team, but somebody grounded in the physical world allows me a chance to let the energy move through in a session and I can observe things and release stuff, but then it like all realigns. And that you could say would be thoughts or information as to understanding what's going on or where we're about to go and these things. But it doesn't always have to be so literal or linear. It can also be, oh, I feel lighter now. Wow, I can take a deeper breath. And there's all this magic stuff happening in the background as to why. But I love what you were sharing, and some of the experiences that you shared just remind me of dropping into the body, being able to take that deep breath and being grounded in those lower chakras. Because when we do feel like I can already sense it, when we feel like, oh, we don't know, and we get anxiety, we can feel the energy come up and just flutter in the higher chakras, the higher heart. We're trying to figure it out. Our mind is on like repeat, just going, going, going. And so if we can take that deep breath and drop in to the lower body, ground and be here, it's so, so important. And for me, my healer helped me just to have that comfort and space. I mean, I shouldn't say just because she helped me with a lot. But so I can relate from my own experience. And then I would love to share from a mentor's experience in the Sacred Healer Circle, having you there. It really made me smile because you would share things And I was like, "Oh, yes, I remember. I, like, have compassion. I remember that was, something I went through a struggle, or I've seen this before as well." And the cool part is I've seen how it's all played out, and so just wanna, like, reassure you from experience, but then also your teams are showing up, so then we get, like, the readings as well, the little minute details of, okay, yes, this is going to be the way to move forward and incorporate this or incorporate that. And, it's like really rewarding for me as well to be able to support you because, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I see all the light, I see all of the wisdom, I see all of the compassion and strength that you have. And I love to just reflect that back to you and let you be in that space to discover it as well.
It
Breathe it
was
all in, girl.
yeah, well, it did feel like that. It was almo and then after every, like, sacred healer session, it, like, took a while to come down from it because you're just we would just be, like, floating in this, like, loving space, and so we were the kinds of things we talked about, and because sometimes talking it out, it can be so lonely
Mhm.
in that space, especially when you're just newly kind of starting out. It can be lonely. It's like, who can I
Yeah,
talk to about this kind of thing, and who's going to understand what I'm even saying? Um, and so to have a space where people not only understood it, but they were, they had something to add or share or reflect, and then to receive it, but then also be able to give it. It just felt so powerful and really, really really helpful to just help us find our footing, like gain our footing underneath us.
yeah.
And sometimes, where it would go,
I
we
know,
don't
so magical.
you're like, "Oh my gosh," I know, like, it was so fun to see, like, kind of how, because a lot of how we learn things is through response, and so sometimes it would be like one of us would bring something up and it, like, activated something in the other, and yeah, it was so divinely, like, orchestrated, it felt like, and,
Yeah,
yeah, it was so cool, and, it reduced loneliness. We would do energy work that really just helped, not only take a deep breath, but it just, like, helped me throughout the week often. Like, the whole week, I would feel like I was, kind of, like, buoyed and supported. Um and then and now I think for people, like anybody listening, I think it's just important to recognize the importance of like finding community or people who, you feel safe enough to say those things to speak
yeah,
your truth to. Because it's when you hold it and feel like I know the fear is like that you'll be like looked at funny or, and maybe you would be in certain circles, but to find where you aren't looked at funny is just incredibly helpful during that void time. Um, yeah, I found and the monthly energy healings that I still go to and will
yeah.
not stop, those group energy healings, those are wildly potent. Like, it's unbelievable what can happen in those. Um, what you bring through and how even with a group altogether, or maybe because it's the group altogether, it's just there's so much that occurs. It's like it's so neat.
It is, yeah, I'm, like, reflecting on it. Well, I have to say I'm very grateful to be a channeler because, I mean, I it's amazing, like, I have that relationship with spirit, and when I show up, it's what comes through, and I am facilitating and translating and sharing the information, but it's like it is all of the group that's showing up. So let's talk about the healing circles, the monthly guided meditation. Sometimes I will feel the whole group kind of like in this space as they're articulating what's happening with the energy. And then I'll get a sense, oh, but there's one person here that needs a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And so I'll just have to vocalize it in a way, like if you're feeling this, then yeah, that's for you, but it's not gonna be for everyone. So I'll be in holding the space as the channeler, and sometimes I get visions or I'll hear something. For example, like a spirit animal will come in, and maybe I'll see a couple of them, and I'm like, "Oh, but this is individualized." So I'm gonna have everybody just tune in and see if they get an impression or, a knowing of a spirit animal for themselves. And then after we talk about it, and for me, it's so fun because sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I saw that elephant. Yes, I saw that butterfly, and I'm like, whose was that? Who was that dragon? Like, so it's really enjoyable as well. But these are the things I think you really beautifully articulated when you said how it was orchestrated, and it does feel like little like also like tapestry, so it's all being woven throughout, and then you're left with wow, there's like literally no way this could all have come together if it weren't for our higher selves and spirit being there, and it's all unscripted. So, and that's one thing I liked about the sacred healer circles. I just knew we were going to show up and go in the moment because I have a lot I could talk about. I could structure a class, but I want to be there for that moment what everybody needs and the current energy of the time as well.
Yeah, and that's also really good because, yeah, current energy, that it ends up being something, that many of us can already relate to or soon will feel. And so, yeah, it's very, very powerful that way too. And what I like about it too is you're so good at, like, seamlessly explaining what's happening, like, it's very calm and soothing, but you explain it so well, which is why I, like, went from the one Reiki person to you, because it's like, I like how you explain what's happening, and, but it's in a way that is, like, calm so that you can actually, like, settle your body can settle into the experience of it,
Mhm.
while listening to what you're saying, and, yeah, I find those to be really like, I look forward to them every single month. I think they're just unbelievably helpful in especially when you're you know, like when you're in this line of work, what I like about how I'm doing it now is I'm prioritizing that I need to fill my cup up. It's something
Yeah.
I didn't recognize that, hence burning out when I was just seeing
Yeah.
client after client after client. Like I wouldn't even take a lunch break because I would work on because my husband it would be like a Saturday and I would have sometimes like 12 clients in a row. Now
Oh,
that's
wow.
insane. That
Girl.
I know that makes no logical sense. Nobody ever like it's just ill-advised. And recognizing like, oh, I see. I didn't recognize like at the time I wasn't aware of my energy body and I wasn't aware of how
Yeah.
much absorbing, how much I was picking up, how much I was not, like, shedding and releasing at the end of my day, or that I wasn't pausing. I wasn't utilizing my team, consciously. And, now I'm enjoying doing work where it's like, no, I prioritize self-care because I'm only as good like, if the vessel in part of what I'm doing, the vehicle is my body, which it is, and, the messages, then in order for me to be at the top of my game, which is how the only way I wanna do it, I really have to, like, use my energetic hygiene. I really have to, like, be full, be able to
Yeah.
give from a place that is abundant, that isn't just like, "Oh, I hope I can do it," Um,
Right.
and I really yeah, I love knowing that now and not feeling bad about it, like, not talking myself out of it. If I feel like I wanna, take a seminar or get a massage or do an energy healing or I put them in there and I'm thinking my clients will be better off for it because
Yes.
you have to take care of yourself, and that aspect of this, like, new phase of my career is just so nourishing that it makes me so thrilled, like, to go to work.
Right.
Yeah, thrilled to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, to wanna be able to feel full of light and have that stamina and show up for your clients. I totally understand and feel this, and I'm seeing as you're describing the experience about self-care, and so I'm seeing, the vision of what that could potentially look like in the energy field, and so I just wanna share it with the listeners. So we talk about charging up your energy so you have that vitality, but what happens when you don't is not only do you feel depleted, but then your energy field shrinks. And then you start to have the energy, whether it's mental, emotional, any kind of energy, spiritual, just the inclination, you're going to start to feel your client's energy. and it'll be more challenging for you to release it at the end and clear it. And so you can just visualize the aura shrinking and then sediment sinking into the energy body. So then after that, not only are you feeling low and depleted, but we might start to have memory. Well, they're going to come through like memories, but it's more like the thoughts or the visions or dreamy kind of experience as we can that aren't ours, but actually is like us playing the session on repeat in our mind, or the energy of the client could be there with maybe an emotion that they have. And so then it's like, okay, now I have to clear that and charge my system back up. I'm so depleted. So there are so many benefits and actually very important foundational aspects for that energetic hygiene and personal care. And my guides have said lately, like, life is about experiencing joy and happiness. So we need to really have that time for us. Like, it's okay to live life and have joy and happiness. And that actually also boosts the energy field and fills us up with that vitality. So, all the things that you're sharing, like a seminar, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that." But when I do take classes and go into group experiences, I get so excited and so charged up, like, from that happiness of meeting others who wanna talk about the things I wanna talk about, and also are so experienced, like, I'm learning from them, and I love this. So, when you were sharing that, I just wanted to express that I absolutely can relate and agree, and to share with listeners if they're new to it, just kind of break it down a little bit more of one of the parts, like one aspect of what can happen when we become depleted.
Yeah, and yeah, even if you're not doing healing work, yeah,
Right.
this is just life in general because it also I used to talk about this in the healer circle and it's still relevant today. I feel like a big part of my journey was, which I referenced in the beginning, was sort of like recognizing how much I was using my masculine energy to get by and
Mhm.
through. And my poor masculine energy was like, you give me a break. Like for real. Um, and I just didn't realize, like, it was a lot of push energy to it was like the only way I'm gonna get something is by
Mhm.
pushing out. And, when I started to go to, like, moon circles or, set intentions or, go to sound healing, I started to realize that was, like, leaning more into my feminine energy and more into,
Yeah.
like, receiving. I thought, "Oh my gosh." I had another mentor that brought this up to me. She was like, "Tell me describe, like, your morning routine," and I was describing, like, meditating, the praying, and all of this and that, and as I was describing it to her, she was like, "You're putting a lot out, like, giving
Ah.
a lot out, but you're not pausing to receive," and I was like, "Oh, that's so true." I was like, 'cause here I thought, "Oh, I'm meditating, like, I'm doing it, like, I'm doing the thing, I'm saying what I'm grateful for, and I'm blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah." And so, like, it's so funny how even the masculine energy was, like, showing up in my spiritual practice, and and I just needed to balance it out more and, like, learn how to yeah, that it's a relationship and that it needs balance. It needed me to, like, rest, pause, be quiet to receive, like, I would throw a question,
Yes.
I would, like, say something, but then I was, like, moving on, and I wasn't actually pausing and, like, resting in figuring out what was the answer, like, "Are you listening?" Um, or even just allowing myself to receive in any way, like money mindset type of stuff with building the business and all the ways, like, all the ways that we need to receive. And so that yeah, whether you're a healer or not, I think that balance of masculine and feminine energies is really good if you feel out of balance to ask, where am I, like, leaning too far or too hard one way or the other? Because
Right.
I have found help that helps me know what I need to kind of adjust.
Yes. Yes, it will. Oh my gosh, and I'm just smiling because I feel like the last few years of my life has been as well that transition from masculine to feminine and receiving, which can be kind of scary when we're used to. I mean, I don't wanna say fully in control because I understand it's like a relationship and a dance with spirit, but when we're putting out a lot and we are very strong in our intentions of how we want things to unfold, or at least showing up the best, like, to that optimal level that we can, and then when we get these messages that like, okay, you've done all that can be done, and now you need to receive and wait for the answers or divine timing or to watch it unfold. It's like, what do you mean? What? Relax and breathe. What do you mean? And like then it's like a whole experience of resetting our system because mental, emotional, spiritual, every way, but, like, I would notice my nervous system had to kinda slow down and be okay with not being on the go, if you wanna call it that, or like you're saying, like, clients back to back to back to back, and so I
Mm.
think I'm, like, kinda tapering off to the other side of that, just overall in my life where it is a little bit easier to say, "Okay, let's just give it a minute. Let's let it all play out. We're all good."
Yeah, even with, well, I can post now on Instagram because you helped me with fear of visibility, so there's that, because for a while I was like, "I can't do this." You know? I mean, the fact that we're even doing this right now says, like, everything that my face is on
Yeah.
it, and yeah. Um, but even with regard to, like, social media or things like that and starting to there can be a lot of, like, prescriptions how you're supposed to do something,
Right.
like, "Oh, if you wanna be successful, you should post blah, blah, blah number of times," or you should, um, whatever, all these little things that you start realizing everybody's doing because they're told this is how it'll be successful.
Mhm.
And really trying, really had to breathe into, like, when am I resisting something because it's mine to work through and get over, like fear of visibility, for example,
Yeah.
or when is it something that's really not authentic to me and that's why I don't wanna do it, and therefore I should
Right.
do it, if don't do it if it's not really you, just because you're told, "Well, that's how you'll be successful." It's like, well, not necessarily, I think you're more successful if you're authentic and you trust that. Um, or like I'll like work on a lot of posts when I'm in the mood, which for a woman, like goes by your cycle.
Yeah.
Like if we're gonna be honest,
Let's
like there are
flow.
times, yeah, there are
Yeah.
times when you're like, no, not right now. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the flow of energy. I'm not feeling what I want to say. Um, then don't. And then
Right.
wait until I feel called to when it really like when I feel like, "Oh, I really wanna say this." And that's like an example of the feminine leading, and then times where I'm maybe, you know, procrastinating, and that's when my masculine is like, "Hey, like, get on with it." You know what I mean? Like, "We need to get this
Yes.
done." Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Come
It's
on
been
now.
an interesting thing to, like, kinda learn how to navigate that, but I have found it really to be I hope this resonates with people because for me personally, whether you own a business or not, I just feel like it's, like, it's been a journey trying to learn how to, like,
Yeah.
balance that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And as you're sharing that, I'm just going back into my own experiences. And I think like a clear distinction is like this feeling that if I'd get not nervous, if I would get sick in my stomach, like upset because I feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough. That right there is not coming from spirit. That's ego or programming. And it's really muddying the system and the energy. And it's not conducive for health. And it's certainly not supportive for an energy therapist who needs to
Mhm.
maintain a clean, clear space within their self. So that was always like, oh, what is this? And the more I would push, it just never solved it. So if I had this like feeling or thought, oh, you're supposed to be posting, or you need to send out a newsletter or an email. And I would try it just like, oh, it just fell flat and it just didn't feel good. I'm like, no, thank you. So if I just now learn, I just don't even worry about it until I get that rush of joy or that inspiration and it just flows so easily. And then like you're saying, you could just channel it all out. You could make 15 posts and put them on draft or something, right? When the
Right.
time is right. Yeah. And that's kind of this receiving. It's the feminine way because we're waiting and we're just experiencing life, receiving that inspiration, and then we take action. And when we take that action, I feel like it's coming from this burst of energy within myself that
Mhm.
lights me up and expands my field rather than makes me feel constricted and just achy, achy inside.
Yeah, that's the word, constricted. That's the word. Like that is the word. That's how it feels like. And when I start to feel that, I'm like, oh, I mean, in the beginning, I was nervous about almost, everything. So it was like, is this just regular nerves or is this actually, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking there's a deadline somehow, some way that I'm missing, you know? Like, what am I
Yes.
doing?
I'm laughing because that's exactly like that's exactly what I felt. And I was like, who's telling me this? I'm self-employed. Stop. Where is this coming from? So
No.
I I did stop kind of going online. I kept getting these ads, like you mentioned, about business, like, oh, it has to look this way. You have to do it this way. This is the structure, the format, blah, blah. And I'm like, huh? You are stressing me out. That is not why. Then I go back. That's not how I got started in this work. I'm like, this is not authentic to me. It just completely does the opposite for my energetic space. So just gonna,
Yeah.
stop going on for a minute and or you can go into, let's say it is Insta or whatever platform, but you start like typing in and searching for different things to flush the algorithm, like, to reset it. And then, yeah. So that's a plan too. If I'm like, let me just look at all the cute kitties, like all the animal posts, I'm down for that all day. Flowers
That
and
always
animals.
works. Yeah, that always works. Yeah, it's so yeah, I find that to be so true, like, in trying to, yeah, I guess it's like what I was saying before that I like to help clients with. It's like you're actually in control and, but you always have a choice, really, if you think about it
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And starting to see like where are we causing those kinds of constrictions or obstacles and can easily remove them if you're conscious of them, which is so
Yeah.
fun to like help people just raise their consciousness of what those kinds of patterns are so that they can actually have an opportunity to shift it if they want. It's like it's hard to shift if you're not aware of it. um, and the energy work can really help you become more aware of it. Like I'll say that to clients too, like after a Reiki session, what comes up sometimes is what gets it,
Yes.
it it gets unleashed because it's for you to see, not everything you don't need to know all the ins and outs of everything. It's not like you actually don't need to know. Like sometimes after a session, it's like a lot was done energetically. Not all of it needs to be like told, figured out, sorted out,
Right.
fully. But the stuff that does come up, I always say to people, like, well, that's for you to look, that means that's fertile ground for you to work on this particular thing. It needs your conscious attention. And I think that ends up being, or I hope what I like to do with people is get them to realize it doesn't mean they did that something bad is happening or you did something wrong or the energy healing didn't work or something, it just means
Right.
this is what your higher self, your younger child self needs you to be taking a look at for you to actually heal and transmute, release, and move on from.
Hmm.
And so I really enjoy working with people to help them relax about that and how that can look, because it can look different for every single person. Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, I really like to create like a safe space for people to do that and to see them in their power. And then also have them like, you can do this type of energy, but then also like have them feel held through it too, so that they don't feel, that untethered feeling that I was talking about earlier that
Yes.
many of us feel, or have
Hmm.
felt. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so
I can relate to that one after this move. I mean, I'm feeling better now, but that was a real experience of like, whoa, how am I not grounded in the forest? This is bizarre. I just like, starting to feel comfortable in a new place and like it could be my home because, like you mentioned, I, the same as you, I'm so sensitive to my surroundings and the energy. So that was a whole thing. And it's lovely to be able to put words to the experience to some extent, anyhow, and share
yeah,
this with somebody, So, and I'm so happy you shared a little bit about your sessions because I was going to ask a little bit more about your sessions in that when people come to you, I'm curious, are there any themes? Because that happens. Like we could say, oh, what are your what are your sessions like? And I would be, yeah, well, typically it's this, but this month
Mm,
or of late, it's been flowing in this kind of way. And it's okay also to be in that space because everything's always in flux and always like we don't want it stagnant or structured so rigid that we
mhm.
don't have flexibility to open to unknown possibilities. But I'm curious, have you like how has it been for you recently with clients? Are you noticing any themes or anything that's really standing out to you?
Yeah, I right now a fair amount of people are coming in, like I said earlier, with some things that, if it's a I tend to see people that are kind of healers. They're the healers or they're going to be. They don't know it
Yeah.
yet, but pretty soon. Um, and so it's like sweeping kind of what is it that they thought they had maybe already addressed, but more is coming up for them to kind of do that last push to kind of get to the next Mario level type of thing, I like to say. Um,
Yeah.
and and they can feel really uneasy because it's like so it can feel so big. Like it can feel like, why is this like so loud? This issue is like so loud right now, or I'm really out of sorts about it. Um,
Mhm.
and I like to say to people that sometimes it's loud because first of all, if it wasn't, it wouldn't push us to do the work. So we just wouldn't
Right.
show up to get the business done, right? So some
Right.
of it is because it needs to be for us to actually do it. Um, but then sometimes I try to give them hope saying like we need contrast. So sometimes it's just like going to make something so obvious by way of how high the emotion is or how ridiculous the situation is. Like,
Right.
what is happening? Um, and why can't I stop? Why is this repeating or whatever? Sometimes it gets so big because let me try to put it, the level of like bigness of it, how hard and heavy and big and deep it feels is commensurate with the level of healing you're going to feel on the other side. And it's
Yes.
sort of like in childbirth, like that last they call it like the literally the ring of fire. Like right like that last 7 to 10 centimeters that the
Yes.
woman right when you yell like I quit. Like I don't want to do it actually. Like I can't, right? It's when
Mhm.
like I can't do it. Um because it's just like the crescendo. And so I can end up seeing people, I mean, not everybody is in this level of despair or anything, but they're sort of like showing up because they're like, nothing I've been doing is working. Medicine isn't
Right.
working. No one, like the doctors aren't helping, the this or that I've been doing forever isn't working. So I might as well try this. And so they come in and I usually explain to them, like, you're on the precipice. Like, that's what this is. That's why it feels so uncomfortable. And also, um, so much of it can be like inner child work, like little aspects that want to be integrated. And I can help with that, obviously, from my clinical work, but energetically, it's so much more efficient to do it now with with the Reiki. Um,
Yeah.
Reiki
Yeah.
can support I had a client the other day and her like younger self was just like bouncing on her chest, just bouncing, 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 bouncing. And she was wanted attention and she was saying like how she just it didn't feel seen, didn't feel
Mm.
loved, didn't feel acknowledged. And so it's like it's so much more efficient than if you were to, the old way of doing it, it would take many sessions sometimes to get to that level of understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
So it can be so in my sessions, I talk in the beginning, then they can choose to have some Reiki energy healing, and then I usually talk afterwards. And so it can be helping them to kind of put the pieces together of like, this is why this is showing up now. This is where it shows
Yes.
up in your body. This is, what wants to be released. This is how it might play out moving forward. Helping them kind of pay attention to like, oh, when you're conscious of it, that means you can work with it. And here's what I would suggest you do to kind of help ease this part of you that wants integration. or release this part of you that isn't yours, actually.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, it's a big
you've just
one.
been holding it. Yeah. I mean, so
Yeah.
many of, yeah, the people we see are sensitive cats and, like holding all this stuff. That's why a lot of people feel so great after their first or second Reiki session because they're like, oh, I just really, it's like a ton of bricks got, released off my
Yes.
chest. I can rest peacefully. And yeah. But then the deeper work can end up being a little more, yeah, where there's dreams that might show up or um, aspects, memories or things like that, that they'll like, oh, they'll come back and say, oh, this just happened. And I'm like, okay, that's what wanted to be looked at. And then we work on that. Um,
Yeah.
so it's yeah, it's people in that like in between, maybe questioning if they're in the right job, questioning if they're in the right relationship, questioning why they're having issues that they thought they went to therapy and solved already. It's a lot of that. And then just people like on the precipice of a leap into um into like new earth type modalities, I guess I would
Nice.
say, like healing modalities and getting and a lot of the like, but can I really do that? And it's like, yeah, you can. You
Right.
absolutely can. So meeting people kind of right where I just described I was several years ago. And that's just very, very fun to be able to help them kind of navigate the waters of how to get to the other side of it. Because change is
Yeah.
so hard. It is so hard to change. And it's easy to just go back to what you used to do and what you're used to doing. It's the familiar is so much more comfortable, even if it's uncomfortable. And,
Right.
you know, uh, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so tempting to just not change, not really, really do the big change. And I find that this energy work really helps like create a sense of it like holds you in it so that you feel like you actually can do this next level
Yes.
change. You actually can do it. Um,
Yes.
so I guess theme wise, I mean, those are sort of the themes, things that need to be integrated or just released, and also helping people connect more with their team. Just
Oh,
like
I
you
love
actually
that.
can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you shared all of this because I can relate so much, and I'm just all smiles over here. And Archangel Jeremiel just kind of popped in, so I don't know if you consciously have invited him in or noticed him, but he's the angel of transition and change. So yeah, so he's definitely like smiling and waving over here. I'm like, hello. Um, but now into the fact that he distracted me, I forget what I was gonna say. That's so
But
funny.
but with clients, what I like with clients in this kind of work, it's like I told someone who's like like a CEO type person when I was building the business, I was like, I'm fine with meeting people and, for one or two sessions and then that's it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and she was like, that's a horrible business model. I was like, well, well, I just like not having a sense of dependency and, not everybody needs like a session every week, but having a
Right.
session most people that I'm meeting right now are needing and wanting more sessions. But that's because if you're in it, you need more support and,
Right.
they tend to taper off. Um, but I really enjoy kind of the potency of the combination of using both of those way modalities, I guess, or ways of helping people.
Yeah, it's very efficient and complementary, so I as well enjoy and I love what you're sharing all of it, and I love the part where because the same with me, like, I don't want people dependent on me, it's really situational and seasonal, like, what are you in right now? And I
Mhm.
had a wonderful client that I saw a couple weeks ago, and we met when I lived in San Antonio when I started all this work for with the public because 'cause I've done it for a while, but so I wanna say, like, we probably met in 2013, around there, 2012, 2013, and we've gone quite a like, almost over well, yeah, over a decade, but when they need something, they know like, she knew where to come and found me online, and that's one reason when I moved from San Antonio, that's when I went online with my sessions because prior to that, I was 5 years in person, 4 or 5 years in person, and met a lot of great people. And but to that, you do hybrid, don't you? Do you have in-person and remote
Yeah,
sessions?
I do, which I love. Yeah, another mentor I worked with helped me realize, like, because I was anti-Zoom sessions, because I was like, I don't know, I just felt like in order to be able to do the work that, to feel the energy, I just kept thinking, like, I get it. I get that it can happen through Zoom, but I didn't trust myself. And she said, let's just try it. Let's just try it. And then I tried it and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It,
Yeah.
it, yeah. And so I appreciate her. That's like Emily Green, shout out, because she really helped me see, like, no, you can do that. And then the joy of realizing, like, how far the reach can be then. Like, you can, you can have clients from all over the place. I have a client right
Yeah.
now who's in Canada or, Australia or wherever, and you're thinking to yourself, like, wow, that actually feels really nourishing to me. It's very exciting, like, makes me feel, yeah, happy. That doesn't always have to just be in person. Um, so yeah, I do both. And I was going to ask you, were you nervous if you had done it for 5 years in person and then
And
like,
then
were you nervous?
well, it was okay. It was a great like experience for me because when I prior to going with the public, so I trained in 2001 with Reiki, so I'd already learned how to do remote work, and my practice was like my spiritual gifts in that way had developed in a sense that I could do remote quite easily, and I would do those little trades with my friends, but not I hadn't like offered it as a full session service for clients at that point. I did offer, I called it like a bubble of light, and if you are in a pinch that day, message me. And if I'm free, I'll meditate for 15 minutes with Reiki and send it your way. So I had that as an offer, but I hadn't done like a full session. And so after I moved, some of my clients were like, well, oh my gosh, I still want to work with you. And so I felt comfortable in it because I already had established a relationship with them and we were kind of figuring it all out together. And I went through some different iterations of how I did this, like was it video, was it email only, was it phone? And then how did I get a recording or notes to them? Because in person, I always hand wrote my notes like when they were beyond the Reiki table at the very end, I'd quick like write the notes
Oh,
out while
yeah.
they were
Oh, I did that
coming to
too.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, girl.
I love
Yes.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so nice. In fact, I'm so funny. I'm laughing. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I should be embarrassed, but there's this emotion I'm feeling that makes me smile. I was just cleaning out a box last week and I found this paper that I had for my sessions. And it was that, oh gosh, I can't think of the word now. It's so far in the past, but when you write on it and then it creates a copy, what is that called? I'm going back to like the
Oh,
80s. I
oh,
feel.
yeah.
You'd always get a receipt and they would like, you have your
Yes,
checks and then it would have, well,
yes.
somebody let me know the name. I'll have to look it up after, but I have a whole like stack of paper and I would write it so I could keep a copy and give them a
Oh,
copy of
that's
my
brilliant.
handwritten notes.
Oh, that's so smart because, oh, shoot. Efficient. I'm gonna log. Thank you for bringing that up because right now I just like afterwards I'm like, oh wait, I didn't have a copy of what I just wrote that person. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
smart.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or now you
Um,
could take a photo or do audio
yeah.
note, but so we moved to California. That's what happened. And then when we were there, a lot of my time was writing Activating the Starseed. That was my book and my big project, but I had clients that still wanted to work with me, and so we did the remote work. Then when I came back to Texas, it was just like had already been flowing with it and I really enjoy it. And now in the space I'm in now, it's remote work only, but I haven't really put myself out there in my community because I'm just kind of focusing on the Sacred Healer Circle and the school, and that's all remote anyhow. So yeah, it's nice. But I will say what I learned, what I experienced was when I started doing the remote Reiki sessions and I could see the energy, it kind of, like, and this is true, but at first it caught me off guard. You can move and do a lot more as a therapist, I felt, in the distance ones, because I would watch it all happen and maybe it was through time and space, but I did get messages after I'd say, okay, like I'm going to be working on you from, 1 to 2, let's say. but the energy is going to continue working throughout the day. And in fact, you might still need to rest like till 2:30. And so I would get messages from the team that said, well, we're sending it through, it's potent and it's happening through time and space. So I would see it all, but then it'd go through and when it met them, it would need a little bit of time for their body to accept it until like the process unravel or, take place before the integration even. So I learned that in that experience, I felt was a bit more potent, even that they got more bang for their buck, if you want to say, like,
Yeah.
you got some in depth. And so I really, really valued that for the energy work. However, at the same time, I myself, as somebody needing to see somebody, there were times where I felt like I really needed in person because
Mm.
I did, although I will say that my healer also did massage. So, of course, like we need that. We have to be in person for that. But I can see a benefit to both. I really can. I see a benefit to both. And what I enjoyed about the in-person experiences are a lot of the spa experience aspect of music and sometimes essential oils, or you could smell the incense, like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and a warm touch. And a lot of us, like we do, we're humans, we need that touch. So I think that there's a benefit to both and they both work and they're both amazing. So I love that you're in a space where you do offer that combination, that hybrid.
Yeah.
That hybrid service, girl. It's awesome.
Well, I was glad I was pushed to give it a go. It's so interesting, like, what you, again, like kind of how you limit yourself and
Yeah.
then realizing, oh, wait, I can do this. And actually, there's a major upside to doing this, or giving it a try. And yeah, I like the sensory aspect of in person a lot. And clients seem to really like it, like the
Yeah.
office itself. They like when they come in and they're like, oh, it feels so relaxed in here and that kind of thing. Um, but there's more freedom, yeah, with adding remote and having that option for people. And a client, it's so funny you said a client from long ago just came back because I just had a client from like my therapy days. So that would have been like in 2010 maybe or earlier. And she somehow found me and was like, hey, would
Nice.
you be willing to, um, she's still in therapy, I guess, but wants to have this as an adjunct. And I was like, wow, that's a name from the past. So yeah, it'll be fun to see if more people will, I mean, not if, I already know more people are
They
going
will.
to come, I'm not even just talking for me. I'm saying in general, I think people are now going to see the benefits of energy work more than they have before, or alternative healing modalities in general. I think people are going to start to open to that, to the ways that can be more helpful to them than what they've tried.
Hmm.
You've been doing this, well before it became and is becoming a little more, popular, I guess, or accepted. And so, yeah, your level of expertise is so high and it's so sorted already. Like, I just love how you work. You're such an expert at it that I was, and I remember thinking, again, that whole like trusting yourself type of thing. I remember when I was with my first Reiki person who I also really appreciate, like she was I had to meet her. Like it had to go the
Yeah.
way it went. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
But then there were aspects, and she did things that she, confronted me with things that were really, I mean, she didn't confront me, but she said things that were confronting and
Okay.
very, very helpful for me to work on and get to the other side of. So I super appreciate that. But then there were things I didn't vibe with. And for some reason was like feeling loyal and bad to change, and really had to like breathe and recognize like, no, you get to change, like you get to go to a different person. If the person
Yes.
that you aren't vibing with, that, like you can thank them for what they've given you up to that point and you can move on to someone else. And then to meet you, and I said to my team, I was like, please bring me the person I'm meant to train for the rest of the Reiki certifications. And then you popped up. I had already done a healing with you, but you were like, the answer was go back to Amy. And I was like, oh, this is so cool how once you open to it and you really like ask, you will get the right person, like, to come into your life at that right I mean, it will happen sometimes anyways, whether you ask or not, but it's fun.
Right.
It's fun when you really like, "Oh, there she is. That's who I'm meant to learn that from." So, yeah, it was really cool. I remember I told you I was at, like, Barnes& and Noble or something like that, and, your channeling book, I think I pre-ordered, but it wasn't
Okay.
supposed to be out yet, and I was at Barnes& and Noble when I was trying to decide this whole thing, and s I had already looked to see if it was there, and it wasn't. Now virtually, I looked, like, online. And I was like, "Oh, it doesn't come out yet." And I go to Barnes& and Noble, and it popped off the shelf. I remember telling you I don't know if you remember this?
I don't, but it was a really whirlwind of a time during that moment. Okay.
It popped
Oh
off
my
the shelf, and I picked it up, and I was like, "What? I thought it wasn't here, and I thought it wasn't even out yet, like, released yet." And
yeah.
then I ended up telling you, um, when I came to you for Reiki too, I was like, "This is a wild story, but," like so when things like that happen, which I know people do stuff like that, like, things like that happen, I was like, "You better listen."
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
That makes me smile so much, and if people are confused, "How did that happen?" So, yeah, it wasn't like a wormhole in time or anything, but kind of. But what happened is we had a date, and then everything was done like, my publisher, a whole thing, it got sped up, and I had done my part, so then they sped up their part, and then it was out, I think, maybe a month or a few weeks before what it was supposed to be out. And so to exactly that, like you probably heard my advertising time and the
Yeah.
initial release date, and then it came out early and we're like, "Whoa, okay, surprise." So
Isn't that funny?
wow,
Yeah, I was looking for a completely
spirit.
different book. Yeah, and then I was like, "Oh, well, this is funny." Yeah, so,
I love that.
but anyways, yeah, you're such a good mentor. I can't tell you how much I appreciate I know I have, like, really tried to express this to you, but words really do not they are not sufficient. But you've been such a helpful such a helpful mentor through the whole process, and
Mm,
especially through the Sacred Healer Circle, but just even continuing on still, you're so supportive. Mentors like you, I think, are so needed, especially for those of us who are coming online a little later. Even if you're already in a healing, profession, it's like recognizing you still need mentorship, like you still need people that
yeah.
you can go to. And I so value your guidance and advice. I've never had a time where I asked you a question and you didn't give sage advice back or sage feedback or here's what I'm hearing. And it's just been really comforting. Like it's like really helped me get where I wanted to go faster than I thought I could get there. So I really, really appreciate you for all of that.
Oh, thank you, and you're so welcome. That makes my heart smile. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Yeah, that's what makes me so happy is supporting others. I know we're all here with like this heart's calling, and the community is such an important experience for me, and so I'm so grateful to like extend that, and then also like the one-on-one aspects of our mentoring, just and you can reach out anytime, which I think is so cool because we got to really know each other even more, and then we have the WhatsApp chat still for the group, and you're in there and we can still like anytime you've got a direct line, which is
So
so
nice of
fun.
you. Yeah, this second group is big and, it has a lot of different people. It's so neat. Like, it's so cool um, to be in to be able nowadays to connect through community, that way, through things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's just so neat what you did. I'm so like honored to be a part of the beginning of it, of like how it got rolling. And loved how intimate it is still. And yeah, like I just like am thrilled. And so it's so fun to see like people all over the place talking about stuff like this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah, it's been
nourishing.
nice.
Yeah.
So, I did a few things different this cohort, seasons and everything is just different where I'm at as well, and so, I'm offering, like, a daytime one and an evening one, so twice a month, and that way the group session, and then I opened it up for more international participants, members that wanted to join. And then also it's kind of like it's month by month subscription in that way. And so also if it's, somebody's interested but not quite sure, they can come and join and not feel the pressure. And so that I think has been like a nice little invitation for others who are interested, and it's still open. But I'm just so excited because then you guys can still communicate and meet through the chat even. And everybody in there's a couple of girls that I just recently met, but others are ones who I've taught or we've worked together in other groups or classes. And it already kind of feels like that family vibe, that family community vibe. And it's nice to know that even when we have it's a nice experience to celebrate our wins and the happy times. But then when we're feeling like, okay, I need some help, SOS support, there's a group there and that we all can reach out to each other. So I'm there, but then also like I love seeing members communicate with each other. So yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah, and Lizzie, and I from we still, like, au audio message each other with, like,
uh,
updates on how things are going and, like, wins or, like, some you know how Lizzie talks so fun, she'll be like, "Oh, girl, this happened to me," and it's so fun.
yes.
And then I'm like, "What?" And then yeah, or, like, book recommendations or little,
Hmm.
encouraging, supportive messages, and yeah, and that's gonna be lifelong now, and that, I wouldn't have met her if not through the sacred circle, so it's so yeah, I just love it, and I'm so glad. I hope more people like you will do things like that, so that, healers and people interested in this kind of thing can stay connected, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think there'll be
Yeah.
power in that.
I think so too. Yeah. It's amazing. It's a new way of it for me especially, but I love I feel like it is kind of a hybrid because we teach, but it's not a class. So it's like
Mhm.
that mentoring group with healing as well. We do healings as well. So yeah, girl, it's really been fun and spirit led for sure. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so grateful. Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Can you share with our listeners where they can find you? And if you have anything like a special or anything coming up you want to highlight, for sure, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, my business is called One Earth Wellness. And so I'm on Instagram, one.earth.wellness. And my website is oneearthwellness.com. And that's where you can book a session with me. For anybody listening that would like to book a session through by way of hearing this podcast, I can have like a 20% off code for them. And
Okay, that's
that would be
awesome.
great. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
lovely. And yeah, so that's the best. I'm on Instagram here and there. That's mostly where you'll see like new posts and things like that. But the website would be how to book a session.
Perfect. Okay, we'll get that all set up and then in show notes, I'll put your link along with the code. So
Great.
that's so generous. Oh my gosh, exciting.
Oh,
Aw.
thank you for having me. This has been a total honor. It was so easy. I was so excited to come talk to you and see kind of where it went. This is how we do, right? We just
Yeah,
like
we flow.
talking.
We flow.
And sometimes
Yes,
those sacred healer circles, they would go a little over sometimes because we were just
I
like off and
know.
running. I know. I know. There's
It
always
still happens.
it's probably me talking, yapping away. Um, but anyways, yeah, thank you so much. And just sending a lot of love back to you. And anybody listening, I'm, sending you lots of love and light and
Aw.
healing energy. Um, yeah, it's been so cool. I just love your podcast. I love listening to every single episode and everything that you're doing and putting out there. And I'm just happy to be like a piece in the cog of the wheel of spirit and soul healing podcast. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Shannon. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for being here with us. It was a wonderful conversation. I'm all smiles. It's going to fuel me for the whole week. So,
Oh, me
yay!
too. Me
It's
too.
so
Me
good.
too.
And thank you so much to our listeners and viewers. If you're listening on an audio app, we also have the video over on YouTube, and you can check out this and past episodes of the Spirit and Soul Healing Podcast on YouTube. And then if you're on YouTube, we've got it covered on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the places. So I'm so happy that you've joined. If you found that this podcast has supported you, I love to receive a thumbs up and a 5-star review. And take care, friends. We'll see you all again next week. Bye. I know we all have experiences, but when I was starting out, I, for whatever reason, was shown a lot of fear based scenarios through the lens of other students in classes with me. So I'm a student, and other students were expressing like their fears or things that I was like, I don't want to, I never want to have to deal with that. What's going on? And truly, it was never a part of my reality, and it very much so hadn't been years later to like a magnified degree. But one of the things was clients that were difficult or rude or to make you feel like you need to be anxious or like would catch you off guard. So scenarios, situations, clients are like these feelings of not being adequate or prepared or at a certain level. And I understand like people were in their particular way healing through insecurities or maybe trauma that they had already had. But like I had my own insecurities, but it didn't pair up in that kind of a setting. Like it didn't play out that kind of a way. So when you're just mentioning to me about your upcoming experience and what I just told myself, I was like, I just go back to how am I showing up? And that's what I'm just like expecting is that it's going to flow. Spirit's here. We're all friends. Like, I don't need my mind or other. In the past, I had noticed how things people had shared that could potentially turned into programming, but it was like a projection, or a fear that I was sensing. If I would have accepted that as a possibility, I mean, I'll say discernment was there. I did listen and I was aware of it, but I never invited it in to
Yeah.
like manifest as a possibility. Um, but yeah, so I just wanted to share that it's gonna be beautiful for you and just show up like exactly how you did today, like everything is flowing and supported. And just always go in the feeling of like, "Oh, we're friends. We're all humans here."
Yeah,
We're
and I
humans.
love talking, so, but
Yeah.
there ends up being that's really helpful, advice because I think sometimes, it's not mine, it's not my fear really, or it'll be like, "Actually, this could be fun." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're nervous, you tend to the anxiety always leans negative, like, it always leans, like, worst case scenario, "What if this? What if that?" To the negative,
Yeah.
but you never even balance it with, like, "Well, what if it's actually really lovely and amazing. And frankly, you're doing it because you wanted to do it. You hoped to have this opportunity, like play with it, like have a good time with it, as opposed to
Yeah.
like create a sense of what ifs that have, that are all about insecurity or projection or just fear based programming type of stuff, you know? Like, well,
Right.
I'm steering the ship, meaning I chose to come do this. So what am I worried about? Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's something about that that I found a lightness with it this morning where I was kinda like, "What? This is so silly." Like, are you doing it just are you nervous just to because you think you're supposed to be somehow? Like, don't need to be. You can just release it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but it depends on what the situation is, I guess, and this is one I did not need nerves about, so, yeah. It was really fun.
Thanks for coming on because you did amazing. You're a wonderful speaker, and I was
Well, I like
loving
talking.
everything you shared. Yeah.
Well, my husband's thrilled because he's like, "Somebody else can listen to her talk."
Imma listen all day. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's so good. So good.